Today on After Effects Quick Tips, I'm going to show you how to adjust expressions so that they're a little more dynamic and you can work with them a little bit easier. So here we have our spider character. He's just dropping in, nothing dynamic, just linear keyframes stopping suddenly. We want to create a little life to this, so of course we would turn to something like an expression. So we select the position. I'm going to separate the dimensions, so I just want to work on the Y position and select the Y position. I'm going to select my bounce expression, and we'll open this up and we can see the expression here. It's an expression from Animalplex and Gray Machine. Thanks very much for developing this. So now when we see, just as its default, it's got a nice little bit of a bounce to it. Works well. And we can of course get into the expression and adjust these numbers. We can change the amplitude, we can change the frequency a little bit, and it gives us a totally different kind of bounce effect to it. But you might find that this is not the most elegant way to handle things. So what we can do instead, we can take a slider control from our expression controls in the effect palette and apply it to our character. I'm going to duplicate it 2 more times. So with the first slider selected, I'm going to highlight the amplitude, which is essentially our intensity, how intense the effect is. I'm going to pick whip it to that slider. I'm going to change the name of the slider to intensity. Next we can select the frequency value, pick whip it to the second slider control. Rename this. Frequency is essentially, in this case, it's the amount of bounces, so we can change this to bounces. And for the decay, highlight its value, pick whip it to the third controller. We'll call this one decay. So now we have those values that we change inside the expression. We can close the expression up, and we have those values available here on slider controls. So we open up our sliders, and you find at its default, when we run it, we don't see the expression at all because these values are all set down to 0. But while RAM preview running, we can then start adding in the values a little bit. Now you can see it going crazy. The reason for that is our values are automatically set with the slider control from 0 to 100, which is far too high for this effect. So we can get in, right click, edit value on this particular slider. We're going to change all these values down from 0 to 5. So right click, edit value. So now we increase the intensity of this. And now we have complete control over those values of the expression. What's also nice is we can turn on the graph editor. We can select our position, and you can see that we have our linear keyframes here. But if we twirl this down, we turn on the post-expression graph, we now see what the expression is doing. We can see those bounces available, and we can adjust in real time, and we get a more visual representation of what we're affecting by increasing the amount of bounces, for example. It's a more dynamic way of working with it. If you want to go a little further and get some more control over this, you can see this is our post expression. We don't have access to we can't adjust this other than through our sliders. If we want to get in and adjust this even further, more fine tuning, the only way of doing that is let's right click on our position keyframes. We're going to go to Keyframe Assistant, Convert Expression to Keyframes. Now all of these have been turned into keyframes. We turn off the graph editor. You can see we have a whole series of keyframes, 1 for every single frame. We may want to consider going to smoother with those selected in a temporal graph. Set a low tolerance, hit apply, and now that reduces the amount of keyframes that we have to deal with. We can get in here, we can adjust this. I find the smoothest sometimes isn't very smooth. It gives us some sharp angles, but we do have this available, so we can get in, we can select a range of values. Let's run RAM preview so we can see what we're doing dynamically. We can increase this, increase the values even more, stretch this out. Now we have more elasticity. So now he's really bouncing around quite a bit. Spidey might look a little bit more appropriate with the amount of bounces he's got going on with that face. Todd Helm, AE Quick Tips. See you next time.